Hey there. Tonight, you'll step into the world of someone who rarely left her village, whose body bore children before it was done growing, and whose voice was softer than the sound of the wind between the rafters. Tonight, you're not a knight or a king. You are not remembered. You are a medieval woman, and your life is not written down in books because your days were all the same, and still too much. No love at first sight. No serenades beneath the window. Just a husband, children, and chores that never end. You wouldn't survive a day, but she did. Again and again. So dim the lights, get comfortable, and sink gently into the story. You don't hear your name much anymore. Not the real one. Not the one your mother whispered to you when you were small, when your hair was still soft, and your hands not yet cracked from water and grain. Back then, you were Maria. Just Maria. A name like any other, but it was yours. It meant something. You were a girl who ran barefoot through the yard, who laughed too loudly, who wondered about what might be beyond the village path. People used to look you in the eyes when they spoke. Now they don't. Now they just call, not to you, but at you. Come here. Take this. Do it. Their words don't carry a name, only instruction. Somewhere along the way, Maria disappeared, or was folded up like old linen, stored in a part of yourself you no longer visit. You're a wife now, a mother, a woman who carries buckets, who soothes fevers, who never finishes a meal because someone else always needs more. When someone calls for mama, that's you. When someone shouts wife, you turn your head. But those are roles, not names. They don't point to you. They point to what you are supposed to do. They carry weight, but not meaning. You wonder sometimes when it changed. Was it the first day you bled? The day of your wedding? The night you gave birth and no one asked how you felt? No one said, "Maria, are you all right?" They said, "She's strong," and walked away. As if strength was something you had chosen. As if the real you, the girl, had simply stepped aside and allowed the role to fill her place. People remember your work, not your voice. They remember the bread you baked, the stains you scrubbed, the babies you nursed. But no one recalls what made you smile when you were 12, or what you hoped for when you turned 14. Those pieces dissolved into the rhythm of the house. Firewood, laundry, silence. And now even you forget. If someone asked what you loved as a child, you would struggle to answer. You might say flowers or singing, but it would feel like a story you once heard, not something that lived in your chest. There's a dullness that settles in when you are seen only as a function. You are needed, always, but never quite seen. And when people stop seeing you, you begin to vanish, slowly, quietly, completely. Still, you move. Still, you do. Not because you are strong, not because you've chosen this, but because there is no room to stop. There are mouths to feed, floors to sweep, children to hush. And perhaps one day, your daughter will ask who you were before all this, and you'll pause. You might not answer right away, but somewhere in the back of your mind, there will be a quiet echo. Maria. Just that. A name. A self. It won't change the work. It won't bring rest. But for a moment, it might help you remember that once, even if only for a short time, you were someone entirely your own. It wasn't a question. No one asked you who you liked, who made your heart lift in quiet moments. or whether you imagined someone kind. There were no secret glances across fields, no letters tucked into aprons, no slow unfolding of trust. One day your father called your name, not gently, not cruelly, just plainly. You stepped into the room and saw a man sitting at the table. Older than you, not old. Stranger, not unkind. He looked up once and then lowered his eyes again. You weren't introduced. Not really. There was no need. He was there because something had been agreed. A cow, maybe. Or land. Or simply because his family had fewer mouths to feed, and yours had one more than it could carry. There's no shame in it. Not here. No rebellion either. Just the quiet machinery of life moving forward, and you moving with it. Because there is no path that leads elsewhere. You knew, even before that day, that love was not a thing meant for you. It was something in songs, in stories the priest would frown upon. You never believed it belonged in kitchens or behind stable doors. What mattered was usefulness, fertility, the sturdiness of your back, and the emptiness of your mouth. So when the wedding was arranged, there was nothing inside you that cried out. Maybe a flutter, maybe a silence that felt too deep. But no storm. You helped sow your own shift. You washed your hair with ash and cold water. And when the day came, you stood in front of the altar with a heart not full but folded, like cloth put away for later. He didn't smile. You didn't either. The words were said, the meal was eaten, and by nightfall you were someone's wife. Not chosen, just placed. And yet, even in a life that's been written before you walk it, something in you watches. Maybe you notice how he puts on his boots, how he clears his throat before speaking, how he eats in silence. Maybe he smells of iron, or old grain, or wet wool. These things become familiar quickly, even if they never feel like home. He doesn't hit you. That's something. He doesn't touch you gently either. But there's a sort of fairness in that, like weather. It simply is. You learn to breathe around him, to wait for his moods like one waits for rain. No expectations, no dreams, only routine, and the deep knowledge that whatever your body feels, it must keep quiet. Because you are not here to feel. You are here to bear, to clean, to feed, to continue. Over time, the word marriage stops meaning anything at all. It becomes the shape of your days, boots by the door, steam from the pot, footsteps at dusk. You carry water while pregnant. You need bread while bleeding. You answer when called. You lower your eyes when spoken to. And maybe someday, if you're lucky or not, one of your daughters will be called in the same way. You'll see her hesitate, and you'll say nothing, because there's nothing to say. There's no advice to give, no escape to offer, only the knowledge that she, too, won't choose. That choice is not part of this life. And still, you'll help her tie her shift. You'll smooth her hair. You'll fold away whatever part of her still dreams. Because you know how to do that now. Because someone once did it for you. The laughter begins early. Someone has already opened the cask, and men are laughing too loudly, their hands heavy on each other's backs. The older women bustle with bread and boiled meats, and the younger girls stare at you, not with envy, but with something quieter. Curiosity, maybe, or pity that hasn't found its name. Music starts, not beautiful, not soft, just loud. The kind of music that demands clapping even if no one feels like dancing. Your dress is new to you, but not new. It once belonged to your cousin. The fabric scratches at your arms and sticks to your skin where you're sweating, though it's cold. You stand near the table, but not too close. They keep calling you the bride, as though saying it louder will make it true. You nod when spoken to. You do not smile. You don't know how to smile today without it cracking your face open. Everyone pretends this is a celebration. And maybe to them it is. For your father, this is a transaction completed, a burden lifted. For your mother, it is relief mingled with a quiet ache that she'll never admit aloud. For your husband, no, for the man who now owns your nights, it is a feast like any other. He drinks, he eats, he wipes his mouth with the back of his hand and says little. And you stand beside him like an object newly purchased, yet already dusty. They joke around you. They toast around you. They move your body through the rituals like furniture. Sit here. Stand there. Hold this. Nod. Somewhere a child cries, a plate shatters, someone sings out of tune. No one notices that you haven't spoken in hours. No one wonders what your voice might sound like when it isn't trembling. The sun sinks and the noise grows. Drunk men slap each other's shoulders and shout over the music. A cousin touches your arm and says something about your good fortune. You nod again. Your hands are folded neatly. They are cold. Someone tugs you toward the center of the room. A dance, a gesture, a formality, and you let them. You move as taught, as expected, as required. Eyes are on you, but they do not see you. They see a girl in a borrowed dress. They see an agreement honored, a promise fulfilled. You are the hinge between families, the rope tying two names together. Not a person, a symbol, a silence, a duty wrapped in linen and dread. You try to remember what you thought weddings would feel like, back when you were too young to bleed. You can't recall. Later, after the food has dulled and the fire has softened, someone guides you away. To the room, to the bed, to the end of the noise. Your feet are numb, your cheeks flushed not from wine but from heat and fear. Your dress is unfastened by fingers that do not ask permission. You lie down because it's what comes next, because you know, because it's already written. The walls are thin. You hear laughter still, drunken, distant, fading. It presses in through the dark like smoke. And still, you say nothing. Not because you agree, not because you accept, but because silence has become your only refuge. In the middle of celebration, you are the one thing that does not speak, and no one seems to notice. Or if they do, they think that's how it should be. They think that's how. The room is quiet, but not peaceful. The fire has gone low, and the shadows move softly along the walls. Outside, the last sounds of celebration still drift in. A final clink of mugs, a burst of laughter that doesn't belong to you. You sit on the edge of the bed, legs together, hands in your lap, and you wait. Not with anticipation and not with fear exactly, more like with emptiness. You've known this night was coming for as long as you've known what marriage is. It was never a question of if, only of when. Now it is here. There is nothing left to imagine. You were told that this was the way of things, and you never asked for anything different. You didn't dare. Girls who ask too many questions end up with fewer choices, not more. You learned early to nod, to lower your eyes, to prepare. He enters the room like a man who's done this before. Maybe he has, maybe not. It doesn't matter. He doesn't look at you like someone meeting his wife for the first time. He looks at you the way a man looks at bread after a long day. A necessity, a right. His boots thud against the floor as he pulls them off. He says nothing at first, then maybe a few words. You won't remember them. They won't be cruel. They won't be kind. They'll just be sounds meant to fill the silence. Then he starts with the ties of your shift. Or perhaps he waits for you to lie down and turn away. You do because you've been told. Because your mother told you, or your aunt, or the neighbor woman whose eyes went flat when she said it. Just let it happen. It'll be over faster if you don't fight. The ceiling becomes your world. You stare at the wooden beams. They are old, uneven, splintered in places. Your fingers curl around the edge of the mattress. The linen beneath you is coarse and smells faintly of dust and dried herbs. You listen to his breath, to the soft movements of cloth, to your own heart that tries not to beat too loud. You think of nothing, or you try to. But the body remembers. The body holds. There is weight now. There is pressure. There is a moment when you want to disappear into the mattress, into the floor, into the earth. You do not cry. You are not allowed. Not because anyone would punish you, but because no one would comfort you. The rules are not written, but they are enforced all the same. This is what it means to become a woman, not a feeling, a fact. When it is done, there is no whisper, no embrace, no shared breath. He rolls away. Perhaps he sleeps. Perhaps he says goodnight. You remain still, your eyes wide in the dark, your legs cold from the night air. You listen for your own name, but it never comes. You wonder what just happened, not the act itself, but the meaning. Was it a joining, a beginning? Or was it simply another task completed, another step down a path you didn't choose? You don't know. You pull the blanket over your body, though it feels strange now, like covering something that no longer belongs to you. You close your eyes because you must. Morning will come, and there will be bread to bake, water to carry, neighbors to greet, and no one will ask how your night was, because they already know. Because it's the same for them, because the first night is not yours, it never was. It is still dark when your eyes open. Not the kind of dark that waits gently to be lifted by the sun, but the heavy kind, thick, motionless, pressed deep into the cold. The fire has gone out hours ago, and the air bites at your skin the moment you shift beneath the blanket. You lie there for a moment, not resting, not resisting, but simply bracing. There is no clock to tell you the hour, no rooster yet calling, but your body knows. It knows the rhythm of necessity. You do not wake because you are rested. You wake because someone must. The baby stirs beside you, his breath a soft wheeze against your arm. Your back aches already, and your fingers are stiff. You move quietly, so as not to wake anyone else, and place your feet on the frozen floor. The cold moves through them like knives, familiar now, almost welcome in its consistency. The room smells of ash, old wool, and sleep. The straw beneath the bed creaks when you stand, reminding you how thin the walls are between what holds you and what gives. The wooden boards underfoot are damp from the breath of the night. and each step reminds you how little separates inside from outside. You wrap a shawl around your shoulders, though it's not enough, and step into the next room where the hearth waits. You begin to rebuild the fire without words. The logs are half frozen. The kindling is stubborn. Smoke fills your eyes before warmth fills your chest. You do not curse, not out loud. You simply wait, blinking into the haze, coaxing light from the stubborn dark. Once the flame catches, it crackles too loud, as though mocking the silence. You sit beside it on your heels, rubbing your palms together, waiting for the feeling to return. Outside, nothing stirs. The village is still asleep. The wind snakes between the cracks in the walls, and your ears catch the low groan of beams adjusting to the cold. You know this sound. You know this stillness. It's the only part of the day that belongs to you, though not really. Even now you are listening. For a cough, for a child's whimper, for the slow creak of someone else rising who might need you. You begin the bread because it must rise. Your hands, stiff and red, knead the dough as though the motion can warm them. You do it by feel. No measuring, just memory, just duty. The flour sticks to your sleeves and clings under your nails. The warmth of the fire does not reach your spine. But you move anyway, not with grace or gratitude, but with the surety of someone who has never had another choice. By the time the others stir, your hands have already been in water, in grain, in smoke. The baby will cry soon. The older child will need help with the latch. Your husband will ask for tea or stew or silence, depending on his mood. And outside, the day will finally begin for them, but not for you. Yours started long before the light returned. It began in the cold and the dark, in the quiet scraping of coals, in the ache behind your knees. And it will not end until long after they sleep. You will carry this day like the last, not because it is special or hard or different, but because it is yours. And no one will thank you. No one will note how early it began. But still, you rise, again and again, before the sun, before the world, because that is the shape of your life, because someone has to. You feel it before you stand. The cold, pressing up from the floor, through the thin layer of straw and fabric, finding the soft arches of your feet, biting at your bones. It waits for you every morning, silent and certain. There is no escaping it, no slippers to buffer it, no thick rugs to hide it, just bare planks or packed earth, or sometimes nothing but a damp layer of last season's straw scattered to keep the mud from rising. You learn not to flinch. You learn to move quickly. But the floor always wins. It is colder than the air, sharper than the wind, more reliable than comfort. Even in summer, the floor keeps its bite, the way a deep well stays cool no matter the heat. And in winter, it becomes a part of your body, a reminder, each time you move, that the house is not warm, the house is not kind. The house holds you, but it does not protect you. Your toes grow numb before breakfast is ready. You shift your weight from one foot to the other as you knead dough, as you tend the fire, as you rock the baby. You stamp sometimes, not in anger, but in a quiet attempt to feel your own limbs again. It doesn't help. The chill clings to your skin, crawls up your legs, settles in your knees. You've wrapped them in cloth before, tied old rags around your ankles, but the damp seeps through everything. The wood absorbs it from below. The stones never dry. In the rainy seasons, the floor is slick with a sheen that never quite disappears. In the dry seasons, it cracks and lifts in places, catching your heel, bruising your step. You have stepped on nails, on shards, on beetles that did not belong indoors. And still you step. There is no pause. There is no cushion. There is only your body and the floor it must meet. Others might joke about it. The men, perhaps, or the visitors. They call it honest living or real grounding. But they wear boots. They sleep off the drink while you crouch to scrub the same spot 3 times with frozen fingers. You've seen wealthier women lift their skirts when they visit, tiptoeing on stone as if their bones were made of finer material. You do not lift yours. You haven't had shoes since the last pair split at the seam. You still keep them, tucked under the bed, as if one day they'll mend themselves, as if one day your feet will be clean enough, smooth enough, important enough to wear them again. But the floor doesn't care. It takes the skin off your heels anyway. It takes the softness from your soles. And when you lie down at night, your legs ache from holding yourself above it all day, as if trying not to sink into something that has already claimed you. There are days when the cold reaches your heart, when you feel it behind your ribs, when it settles in your breath. You cough more in those days. Your bones hum with it, long after the fire has burned bright. You sit near the hearth, but even there, the warmth never quite reaches your feet. You grow used to the numbness. You grow used to the way your toes feel like stones and your arches pulse with dull pain. You dream, sometimes, of a floor made of something else, of soft mats, of dry straw, of nothing at all, just floating somehow. But dreams don't last. Morning always comes. The fire always dies down. And the floor is always cold. It is the one thing that never forgets to greet you. They are never still. Even in sleep, your hands twitch, curl, hold tight to dreams that feel like work. You wake with your fingers already reaching for the blanket that slipped, for the child who turned in his sleep, for the ache in your back that you can't massage away. In the first hours of morning, they knead dough, crack eggs, scoop ash. They rinse, they wring, they lift. The warmth of the fire doesn't reach them until long after they've touched cold iron, frozen handles, wet cloth. And when the day truly begins, they are already sore, already tired. You don't notice anymore. The ache is just a layer beneath your skin. The skin itself is cracked in places, hardened in others. The nails are uneven, stained. You don't think of them as your hands anymore. They belong to the house, to the needs of others. They are not delicate. They are not praised. They are simply used. You sew without looking now. The needle slips in and out of fabric as you rock a baby with your foot. You peel vegetables while answering a question. You shell peas while listening for footsteps. You stir porridge, turn coals, brush crumbs off the table, tuck hair behind a child's ear. All without pause, without thought. Each motion leads into the next. If one task ends, another begins. There is no space between. The moments when your hands are empty feel wrong, like forgetting something on the fire. You pick at invisible threads. You reach for work that isn't there. Stillness becomes unsettling. Your body trained itself long ago not to trust it, because stillness means you've missed something, that someone will call and you won't be ready. So your fingers always find something, a pot to scrub, a torn hem to fix, a basket to carry, a back to support. And if nothing else, they wring each other in silence. Even in pain, they move. When you cut your palm on broken pottery, you wrap it and keep stirring. When the joints swell in winter, you soak them at night but never stop. There is no rest, only rhythm. Sometimes they tremble, sometimes they go numb. And still you continue. Because hands that stop mean tasks that pile up, children that go hungry, laundry that rots. You've learned to feel through cloth, to test water by touch, to measure flour by weight in your palm. Your hands know things your mouth does not. They know how much to twist, how long to scrub, how gently to hold a fevered child. You've slapped with them. You've prayed with them. You've buried with them. They are your tools, your language, your only constant companions. And though they are tired, they never refuse you. They simply keep moving. At night, when the fire is low and everyone is finally asleep, your hands are still not done. You reach across the bed to adjust a blanket. You feel a forehead. You rub your own arms, as if that could ease anything. Sometimes you lie awake, fingers throbbing, and imagine someone holding them just to rest them. Not to fix, not to pull, just to hold. But no one comes. The hands stay where they've always been, beneath you, beside you, in service to everyone else. In the dark, you stretch them out in front of you. You don't recognize them. The veins are thicker now, the fingers more bent than straight. You try to remember the last time they were kissed, or even noticed. You can't. They are not soft. They are not beautiful. But they are what keep the house alive. What keep everyone warm, fed, dressed, carried. They are not yours anymore, but they still belong to you. You don't see your face often, not clearly, not fully. There are no mirrors in the house, and if there were, there would be no time to stop in front of one. The surface of water sometimes catches your reflection, in a basin, in a bucket, in a muddy pool behind the barn, but it's never still enough. Just a blur, just a flicker of someone. Your image shifts with the wind, breaks with the ripple. You don't linger. There's nothing to find. You know your hands, your knees, your back. You know the curve of your belly after childbirth, the ache in your wrists after wringing out linen. But your face, that's for others to see, not for you. And no one really looks anyway. They look through you, around you. You're not a person who gets described. You're not pretty or plain. You're useful, and usefulness needs no reflection. Once, long ago, you asked your mother what you looked like. She laughed softly, not unkindly, and said you had good bones, as if you were a chicken, as if beauty was something cooked down into broth. You remember feeling proud, or at least reassured, but now, you've forgotten even that. The children pull at your skirts without looking up. Your husband glances at you only when something's wrong. The soup is too thin. The baby won't stop crying. The seam split in his shirt. His gaze is functional, like yours. You check his face for anger, for silence, for danger. You do not look for admiration. That belongs in stories you never finished hearing. You've come to understand that appearance is for those with margin, with leisure, with space in their day to consider softness. You don't have that. You don't need it. And still, sometimes, you wonder. You wonder if your eyes have dulled, or if they still hold the fire your sister once said she envied. You wonder if your hair has more gray now, if your mouth has drooped, if your cheeks are hollow from nights without rest. But then you rub your face with cold water, pat it dry with your apron, and get on with things. The animals need feeding. The floor needs sweeping. Your youngest has a rash again. There is no mirror that would change that. What would you do with the knowledge anyway? You wouldn't paint your lips or braid your hair differently. You wouldn't spend longer in the morning, turning this way or that. You wouldn't tell anyone. You'd simply carry the image with you. One more weight. One more ghost of who you might have been. And yet, something inside you remembers. Not clearly. Just a shadow of a girl who once ran her fingers across her cheeks and smiled, just to see what it looked like. A girl who looked into still water and pretended it was a silvered glass. A girl who thought maybe, one day, someone would call her beautiful, and it would mean something. That girl still lives in the corners of your mind, quieter now, wrapped in years and smoke and silence. You don't resent her, but you don't have time for her either. So you let her sleep. You wipe your face with a cloth. You tie your hair back tightly. You pull your shawl close. And you leave the room without checking your reflection. Because there is no mirror. And even if there were, what would it tell you that you don't already feel in your bones? The fire gives you warmth, but never without condition. You crouch beside it in the early hours, coaxing it back to life with trembling fingers, feeding it twigs and damp wood, blowing into the embers until your lungs ache and your eyes sting. When it finally catches, the heat comes slow, hesitant, as if unsure whether you deserve it. But the smoke arrives first. It curls up through the cracks, escapes sideways, hangs heavy beneath the beams. There is no chimney, not really. Just a hole in the roof and a hope that the wind is kind today. Most days it isn't. The room fills before it clears. You blink through it as you move, as you cook, as you wrap your arms around the baby to keep him from coughing. The warmth fades quickly when you leave the hearth. The smoke does not. It settles into everything. Into your shawl, your sheets, your hair. It clings to your skin like a second layer. You can scrub, but it stays. You can air the room, but it returns. The children smell like it. Your husband does too. You've forgotten what anything else might smell like. Flowers, maybe. Or rain. But those belong to other places. Here, you know only soot. When you knead dough, your knuckles are black at the creases. When you rub your eyes, they water more. You learn to live inside it. This slow fog that never lifts. You breathe it in and let it live beneath your ribs. In winter, it becomes part of the air itself. In summer, it rises from the walls, even when the fire has gone cold. You once dreamed of open windows, breezes, the scent of clean linen. Now, you dream only of a fire that burns hot and fast, with less smoke and more silence. The heat it gives is never enough. You press your back to the stones, hold your hands close, but the warmth disappears as soon as you turn away. It warms the front of you while your back shivers. It heats the pot but not the room. The children cry when they bathe, because the water is never warm enough. You sit near it to dry their hair, to soothe their coughs, to feel something against your knuckles. But you cannot stay long. There is work to do, and it won't be done beside the hearth. So you carry the warmth in your memory and the smoke on your skin. At night, you lie beneath blankets that smell of ash, beside a man who does not notice. You cough softly into the dark and pull the fabric tighter. Somewhere above, The roof breathes out another curl of smoke into the night. And still, you return to it. Every day. Because it is the only fire you have. Because it boils the water. Because it softens the beans. Because it dries the cloth. You do not curse it, even when your eyes burn. Even when your lungs feel thick. You simply learn to live with it. Like hunger, like silence, like cold. You turn the logs and stir the pot. You lift the baby higher so his face stays above the haze. You teach your daughters to keep their hair tied back so it doesn't catch. You teach them not to fear the burn, only to respect it. You teach them to smile through the smoke, because there is no other way. And when they cough in their sleep, you press a hand to their chest and whisper nothing. Because what can you say? Fire burns, yes, but smoke stays, but. The food is on the table, if you can call it that. A cracked wooden surface that leans to one side and smells faintly of sour milk and ash. You place the bowls down carefully, fingers still red from the fire, wrists aching from stirring, lifting, grinding. The steam curls up, not fragrant or rich, but enough. Enough to make the children quiet. Enough to stop your husband from scowling. You do not sit. You stand to the side, wiping your hands on the same apron you've used for 3 days. You watch their mouths move, chewing, sipping, swallowing, and listen for silence, not thanks. When the pot is light and the bowls scraped, you wait a little longer, just in case someone wants more. And if they do, you give it to them. You always do. You've learned to quiet your stomach before your voice. You've eaten last for so long that you no longer notice. It's a rhythm now, a rule etched into your bones. First the husband, then the children, then the elders if they're visiting. Then the men who stop by with questions about fields or fences. Then maybe the neighbor who brings cheese and expects something in return. Only after all of them, when the talking dies down and the clatter has faded, can you take what's left. Often it's crusts, sometimes broth too thin to carry taste. Once in a while, a spare bite of something hot, if no one else has claimed it. You eat standing, near the wall or over the pot, with your back turned. Not from shame, but from habit. You don't want to be asked why you waited. You don't want them to notice that you're hungry. You don't want your hunger to become a topic. Even when you're carrying a child, inside or in your arms, nothing changes. You feed the baby first, of course. Then you make the food. Then you wait. You've fainted before. Once near the fire, once outside while hanging linens. No one made much of it. You were just tired, they said. Maybe you hadn't eaten enough, someone murmured. But still, the next day, you served them first. Because this is the way things are. This is the shape of a woman's hunger. Not loud, not visible, just constant, just accepted. There are days when you feel full simply from the smell of bread, from the memory of food on your tongue. And there are nights when you lie awake with a stomach that feels like it's folding in on itself, but you say nothing. You turn onto your side. You press your hands flat against your middle. You wait for sleep to cover it. You dream sometimes of a table set just for you, a bowl that's full, a spoon that's clean, a chair that's empty until you sit. You dream of eating first, not from greed, but from grace, from being seen, from being fed before you've spent yourself. But then you wake and the pot is cold and someone's already calling your name. The day begins again. The children are hungry. The man is waiting. And the food, if there is food, goes where it always goes. And you wait, again. Because a good woman waits. Because a full woman is a selfish woman. Because that's what you were taught, and what you now teach in turn. Not with words, but with actions, with silence, with half portions, with patience, always patience. You eat last, if anything is left, and if nothing is, you say you weren't hungry, and maybe after enough years that even becomes true. The needle finds its way through the fabric like it always does. Your fingers guide it out of habit, not thought. You sit by the window, what little light there is falling across your lap, and you stitch. A torn hem, a fraying sleeve, a patch for a pair of trousers worn thin at the knees. None of it is yours. It never is. The shirt belongs to your husband, the socks to the eldest boy. The apron you're repairing hasn't touched your own waist in years. And still, you mend it. Carefully, even lovingly, though you would never use that word. The thread pulls tight, sealing holes you didn't make. You tie off the end and reach for the next piece. There is always something waiting, always a pile beside the hearth or tucked into a basket. Things worn down by other people's labor, handed to you like apologies with no words. You mend them without question. You don't remember the last thing you stitched for yourself. Maybe a headscarf, years ago, maybe not even that. The clothes on your back were once your sister's, or your mother's, or just passed through too many hands to say. You adjust them to fit, tuck here, tighten there, but nothing ever really feels like yours. When something tears, you fix it. When something stains, you scrub it. When something breaks, you try to make it whole again. But only if it's needed by someone else. Your own needs go unnoticed, even by you. You've patched boots you've never worn, replaced buttons on coats you've never touched, sewn name marks into collars so the boys won't lose them. But your name? It never appears. You don't write it. You don't claim space with it. You are hands, needle, thread. You are a quiet repair that no one remembers making. Sometimes you sit long after the mending is done, needle still in hand, just breathing into the silence. The house creaks. The fire snaps. You look down at your fingers, red, raw, one of them bandaged where the skin split again. There's satisfaction, maybe, in making something useful again, in saving a child from the shame of holes, in helping your husband look respectable at market. But it fades quickly. No one thanks you. No one notices the patch unless it fails. And when it fails, you'll fix it again. You've sewn the same tear in the same shirt 3 times. You've turned sheets so many ways that you know their weave like a prayer. You could do it with your eyes closed. And sometimes you nearly do, nodding off with the thread still looped around your finger, jerking awake when the needle slips. There is a kind of invisibility in mending, a kind that wraps around your life the way the thread wraps around cloth. You repair what others use, what others own, their belongings, their tools, their dignity. But your own things, your body, your mind, your rest, remain frayed. No one comes to sew up your wounds. No one patches your exhaustion. You carry your torn places inside you, stitched together by silence, by duty, by repetition. And you keep going, because someone has to, because the house depends on quiet women with busy hands. You sit again, you thread the needle, you lift the next garment from the pile, and you mend what was never yours, because it needs you, because it asks nothing but expects everything, because there is no one else who will. The priest comes once a week, sometimes less, depending on the roads and the weather. When he enters the house, the mood shifts. Your husband stands straighter. The children go quiet. You keep your hands busy, wiping the table, checking the fire, folding cloth that doesn't need folding, because idle hands draw attention, and attention is dangerous when you have no voice in the room. The priest greets your husband first, always. They shake hands like men do, firm and shallow, a gesture that pretends at equality while affirming rank. You nod when your husband nods at you. The priest does not say your name. Sometimes he glances your way, but only if he needs more broth or bread or a second spoon. When he speaks, his voice is soft but firm, and it is never directed at you. He talks about sin and duty, about the order of things, about what's expected. But the words pass through you like smoke. You are not the one being addressed. You are the one being reminded. After prayers, they talk for longer. At the table or near the door if it's warmer. You pour the drink and set the bread down gently. They speak of crops, of neighbors, of small complaints dressed as questions. The priest offers opinions, not advice, opinions. And your husband listens. Sometimes he agrees. Sometimes he doesn't. Either way, you keep your eyes low. You are mentioned sometimes, but not directly. The wife does this, your husband might say. She's managing the rest, or she knows her place. The priest nods, approving or not. You are a concept, a category, a supporting role in a story told by someone else. When women are spoken of, a neighbor's daughter, a sick mother, a stubborn wife, it is with the tone of men measuring things they cannot change but still must handle. You learn to understand tone more than content, because that's where the judgment lives. You've been to the chapel, of course. You've knelt on its cold floor, listened to sermons about obedience and grace. But even there, you are not a participant, only a listener. You are told how to behave, how to submit, how to endure. The holy words are not for comfort. They are for shaping. The priest speaks of Mary with reverence, of Eve with warning. Your place, he says, is in silence, in service, in faith. And faith, as you've learned, means accepting that the world is not yours to question. You bow your head. You mouth the prayers. You sit through readings in a language you don't understand. But when your child is sick, it is your body that holds them. When your husband is cruel, it is your body that absorbs it. When your spirit breaks, it is your voice that stays silent, not from lack of feeling, but because the church has no ear for it. And still, you serve. You sweep the chapel when asked. You wash the linens. You light the candle with hands that never stop shaking. Because the church is part of life, and life is not yours to negotiate. It belongs to men who speak in low voices while you stir the pot. It belongs to books you cannot read and rituals you must follow. When the priest leaves, he thanks your husband. You stand in the doorway, nodding once more, and then you return to the work, the quiet, unending work of a woman whose soul is seen only in the margins. You pray, perhaps, not aloud, not in the way they taught you, but in the way your body remembers, with bread, with cloth, with care. Not because you were told to, but because no one listens when you speak. So you speak in doing. And the priest, he never hears that. He talks to your husband, always your husband. It begins as a quiet knowing, somewhere deep beneath the ribs, a tiredness that no sleep touches, a weight that gathers day by day, slow and certain. You do not announce it. There is no moment of joy, no gentle hand on your belly, no laughter by the fire. You do the math in your head. How long since your last bleeding? How many days of nausea? How soon until your body can no longer hide what your face has already accepted? You are pregnant again, and the work does not stop. The buckets are just as heavy, the wood just as cold, the stairs just as steep. There is no pause, no tenderness carved out for the woman who carries life. You wake before the sun. You kneel before the fire. You bend, you lift, you reach. Every movement tightens the ache, but none of them can be skipped. Because pregnancy is not a reason to rest. It's another job added to the list. No one coddles you. No one says, "Sit down, you're carrying a child." At most, they nod, a grunt of recognition, a muttered prayer that this one will live. Your mother might glance at you with something close to pity, but she keeps her hands busy. She knows better than to speak softness into a world that has no space for it. Your husband touches you when he wants to, not when you're ready. He doesn't count the months, just the meals. If the child comes strong and whole, he'll be pleased. If not, the silence will be heavier than the grief. You tie your apron tighter. You keep moving, even when the swell begins to show. Even when your back arches in pain. Even when your ankles swell like ripened fruit. The cow still needs milking. The laundry still needs rinsing. The older children still cry at night. And through it all, you carry, not just the child, but the house, the hunger, the days. There is no privacy. When the time comes, it will come wherever you are. In the field, at the hearth, between one task and the next. You know women who have squatted behind the barn, wiped their brow, cut the cord, and gone back to kneading dough. You know others who bled too long and too fast, who whispered the names of saints as the world drained out of them. You don't know which you will be. You don't think about it. You focus on today's labor, not tomorrow's pain. When your belly hardens under your hands, you pause. You breathe. You whisper to no one. Then you lift the basket anyway. You climb the ladder anyway. You rock the baby anyway. Sometimes, when the weight shifts inside you, it takes your breath away. Not from wonder, but from strain. You press your hand to your side and keep walking. There is no one to carry you, so you carry yourself. And when the child finally comes, there will be no rest then either. Blood, cloth, water, tears, all the same. You will clean yourself. You will nurse. You will rise too soon, and soon enough, you will be pregnant again. The months between births are counted in missed nights of sleep, in cracked nipples, in meals eaten cold while rocking a crying infant. Your body is not your own. It is a vessel, a tool, a rhythm, and you are not angry. You are not surprised. You simply endure. Because pregnancy doesn't wait. It doesn't ask. It doesn't excuse. It arrives like weather. It settles like smoke. It grows inside you while you stir the pot, while you carry the firewood, while you bury the child before the one you carry is born. And through it all, you stay on your feet. Because that is what women do here. Not because they are strong, but because they must be. Because no one else will be, if they aren't. There are nights when he comes home and speaks softly. Not warmly, never that, but quietly, as if the day has drained him of noise. He sets his boots by the door without slamming them, He eats what you serve without complaint. He doesn't look at you long, but he doesn't avoid your face either. These nights are rare, and you learn to recognize them by the way his shoulders drop, the way he rubs his brow instead of raising his voice. He might touch your back as he walks past. He might nod if the children are already asleep. He might even mutter something close to thanks. It's not affection, but it's not anger. And that's enough to breathe a little easier, enough to wash the bowls slower, enough to allow your hands to rest on the table just for a moment, without bracing for the next command. On nights like these, you remember what it feels like to simply exist beside another person, and not beneath them. But other nights are different. You hear it in the way the door opens. Too fast, too loud. His steps carry weight, and not just from his boots. The table creaks under his hands. The words, if they come, are short and sharp. If the stew is cold, he scowls. If the children make noise, he curses. If you speak, he cuts you off. You learn quickly not to meet his eye. You keep your voice low. You move quietly, as if silence could soften his spine. Sometimes he doesn't say anything at all. That's worse. The stillness swells until it fills the room, pressing against your ribs, clouding your breath. You don't ask what's wrong. You don't ask where he's been. You already know it doesn't matter. His reasons are his own. A bad crop, a bruised ego, a look from another man he didn't like. You don't need to know what caused the storm to know how to endure it. And when his hands reach for you, you don't flinch. Not anymore. Sometimes they're steady, sometimes they're not. He takes what he wants when he wants it. There are no questions, no invitations, only a quiet submission learned over time, learned the first night, the second, and every night after. You tell yourself that it's easier this way, that if you stay still, it ends faster, that if you don't resist, he won't be cruel. And sometimes that's true, but not always. His mood is not a river. It doesn't flow. It breaks, it floods, it recedes without pattern. He may kiss your shoulder after. He may say nothing at all. He may sleep soundly while you stare into the dark, your breath held in your throat, your body still echoing with everything you couldn't say. You wrap the blanket tighter. You bury your face in the straw. You wait for morning like it's something that must be earned. You never speak of it. Not to your mother, not to the priest, not even to yourself. It is not spoken, and so it becomes part of the house like the draft through the roof or the soot in the air. Unwelcome but expected. You don't hate him. There's no room for hatred. Hatred requires space, and all your space is taken by duty, by children, by hunger, by silence. You carry what happens like you carry water, carefully, without spilling, without complaint. He is your husband, the father of your children, the man who repairs the fence and brings home bread when there's money to spare. Sometimes he is gentle, sometimes not. You don't judge. You don't ask why. You survive. And that, in this house, is enough. She arrives in the dark, as she always does. A knock at the door, short and firm. No panic, no urgency. Just the sound of someone who's done this too many times to flinch. She doesn't ask if she's needed. She knows. You let her in without speaking. Your hands are shaking. Your breath short. Your body already folding in on itself with each wave of pain. But she doesn't comfort you. Not exactly. She nods once, sets her bundle down, and begins. The water, the cloth, the low fire. Her movements are methodical, practiced, absent of fear. She doesn't tell you it will be all right. She doesn't lie. You don't expect her to. She's seen too many women die. Too many babies born into silence. Too many rooms go cold too quickly. She kneels beside you with the weight of 100 labors on her back, and none of them show on her face. Her hands are dry, strong, worn like rope. She doesn't speak unless necessary. When she does, it's in short commands. Breathe, push, wait. She doesn't say your name. She doesn't say the baby's. Her voice is low, almost bored, but not unkind. You focus on it like it's a thread holding you to the earth. You scream once and she doesn't flinch. She's heard worse, much worse. She presses a hand to your thigh, not to comfort, but to steady you, to keep the right parts of you open, held, bearing down. She catches the child before you even feel the final pull. She wraps it quickly, checks it silently. You try to read her face, but there's nothing there. Just tiredness. She doesn't celebrate. If the baby breathes, she nods. If the baby doesn't, she wraps tighter. You've seen both. Today the baby breathes, and still she doesn't smile. She washes the blood from your legs. She cleans the cord. She presses at your belly with her firm, calloused hands. She knows how to feel for the danger that still lingers even after the birth is done. Hemorrhage, fever, the slow death that follows the fast one. She says nothing as you sob into your hands, or into the mattress, or into the thin air between you. Not from sadness, not from joy, just from the overwhelming weight of pain and release and fear. She pours water from a jug. She wrings out a cloth. She wipes you down like someone who has done this more times than she's counted. You ask if the baby is all right. She says, yes, but doesn't look at you. She doesn't touch your shoulder. She doesn't whisper reassurance. You don't ask more. You already understand what kind of woman she is. She used to cry, they say. Long ago, before your time, when she first began, back when she was a girl following her own mother, holding the towels, watching the blood. Back when she hadn't yet learned that most babies come into the world screaming, and too many leave it quiet. Back when a mother's last breath could still rattle her. But not now. Now she doesn't blink. Now she lights a fire, ties a knot, moves on. The village depends on her because she doesn't cry, because she shows up, because she does what others cannot. And one day, if your daughters survive, she will be there for them too. Unsmiling, unshaken, kneeling beside them while their bodies split open. You wonder if they'll cry, if they'll scream, if they'll look to the midwife and hope for something tender. A hand, a word, a sign. And you already know the answer. The midwife won't cry. She doesn't anymore. She hasn't for years. And that is why she's still here. It begins as a whimper, barely louder than the wind outside. Then a cough. Then the sharp, broken cry that splits the night. Your name, not the one you were born with, but the one they gave you when they first opened their eyes and saw only you. Mama. Again and again. Louder, more desperate, until you're already on your feet before thought can catch up to motion. The fire has died down. The room is black. Your hands reach for the child, still burning, still trembling. His skin is slick, his breath too fast. You press a cloth to his forehead, murmur something soft, shift his limbs so he's not curled too tight. He's calling your name because he doesn't know what's happening to his body. Because everything hurts, and he's afraid, and the only thing he trusts is you, not the priest, not the midwife, not even God. Just you. You are the one who stays. You've seen this before. The heat that won't break, the eyes that glaze, the body that shakes without rhythm. You don't panic. Not because it isn't terrifying, but because you're not allowed. Fear is a luxury. Fear is for those who can afford to collapse. Your hands must keep moving, to boil water, to fetch the herbs, to dampen cloth and measure breath. You whisper prayers under your breath, not for comfort, but for focus, because the rhythm of the words steadies your fingers. You remember how it went with the last one, the night that stretched too long, the silence that followed. You don't think of that now. You push it down. Your child is here, now, screaming your name with cracked lips and wet lashes and a voice that sounds too small for the weight of their fear. You rock them gently. You hum. You lie. You say it will pass. You say it always does. The others wake. Someone stirs in the next room. Your husband shifts in bed but doesn't rise. He never does. This is your place. This is your burden. You cradle the child against your chest and sway gently. You whisper your own name back to them, again and again, as if the repetition will anchor them. Mama. 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 It's not just what they call you. It's what you've become. A shield, a roof, a soft wall between them and the dark. You don't know when that happened. When your name stopped meaning person and started meaning safe. You only know that you can't fail them. Not tonight. Not ever. You stroke their back. You wipe their face. You do not cry, even when your chest aches and your head swims and the cold floor seeps through your knees. Crying would make them afraid. So you don't. Eventually, the fever breaks. Or it doesn't. Eventually, the child sleeps. Or they don't. Either way, the house falls quiet again. You sit in the dark with a damp child against your shoulder and wonder if anyone else in the world is awake. If any other woman is holding a child whose body feels like a furnace. If any other mother is praying to be enough. You think of your own mother, long gone, and wonder how many nights she sat like this, whispering, rocking, enduring. You do not think of rest. You do not think of thanks. You only think of keeping this child safe. And when morning comes, and the others rise, and the sun slips between the slats in the wall, you will still be sitting there, awake, holding, answering every cry that knows only one word, your name, not because you are strong, but because you are all they have. She comes into the world small and wet and red-faced, her first breath sharp and unkind. The midwife holds her up to the light, turns her slightly, and without a word hands her to you. You already know. Before they speak, before they glance your way, before the cloth even touches her skin, you know she is a girl, and you do not smile. Not because she isn't beautiful, not because she isn't wanted, but because your heart tightens in a point that has nothing to do with pain or blood. You look at her, and what you see is not her face but her future. You see the same floor she will scrub, the same water she will carry, the same hands that will learn to stay busy even when they tremble. You see your life unfolding again, only smaller, softer, and more easily broken. You hold her close, and already you feel the weight of what the world will take from her. They were hoping for a boy. No one says it outright, but the air thickens in the room the moment her sex is known. Your husband doesn't meet your eye. The midwife clears her throat, shifts her weight, and begins cleaning. A boy means strength, means future labor, means protection. A girl means more mouths, more dowries, more quiet sadnesses passed from one generation to the next. You wrap her carefully in cloth you mended just last week. You warm her tiny feet with your breath. You whisper something that isn't quite a blessing, not quite a promise. Just sound to fill the silence. They will speak of her later, with shrugs and half smiles. Maybe next time, someone might say. At least she's healthy. But none of that reaches you now. Right now, she is a heartbeat on your chest. Right now, she is warmth and softness and need. And already the world is preparing to forget her. You will teach her everything you know. How to walk with her eyes lowered. How to stitch through pain. How to listen for moods and footsteps. How to bear children without complaint. And she will learn quickly, as you did, because girls always do. You will show her where to press when her stomach cramps, where to hide coins if she's ever lucky enough to have some, what herbs to boil if her bleeding doesn't stop. You will teach her how to keep her head when men are shouting, how to read hunger in a baby's cry, how to stay awake long enough to finish, but not so long that she begins to think. You will love her fiercely, but the world won't call it love. They will call it duty. And when she is old enough to be called woman by those who never learned her name, they'll say you raised her well, quiet, strong, useful, the same words they used for you. And yet, in this moment, this small, sacred moment while she sleeps against your skin, you allow yourself to feel something close to joy. Not because you believe her life will be easier than yours. It won't. But because she is here. Because she is warm. Because her breath fogs against your breast, and her fingers curl into the fabric of your shift, like she's known you forever. You do not smile, but your eyes stay open longer than they need to. You trace her face with your gaze, memorize the shape of her ears, the softness of her mouth, and somewhere deep inside, in a place you almost forgot you still had, you hope. Not for miracles, not for escape, just for small things. A kinder husband, a quieter home, a few extra years before the weight of the world begins to press down. You press your lips to her forehead, you whisper her name, and you hold her closer, because you know and still you love. You don't sleep the way others do, not deeply, not fully. Your body lies down, yes, bone against straw, cheek against rough cloth, but your mind never sinks. It hovers, alert even in the quietest hours. Every creak of wood, every shift in the wind, every breath too sharp or too soft pulls you halfway back to the surface. You have trained yourself to listen even while dreaming. You hear footsteps in dirt, the rustle of mice, the cough that could become a fever. But most of all, you listen for crying. that thin, piercing sound that breaks through everything, through sleep, through exhaustion, through silence, and pulls you upright before your eyes even open. It might be the baby. It might be the boy who still wets the bed and doesn't know why. It might be someone else's child in another room, but your body doesn't wait to confirm. You rise, because no one else will. You've done it so many times that your feet find the ground without thinking. Your hands find the shawl, the cup, the cloth. You move through the dark without bumping the furniture. You reach the child and press your palm to their forehead, their back, their cheeks. You whisper before they can speak. You hush before they can panic. You say nothing sweet, not because you don't love them, but because love at this hour is not a word. It is a motion, a gesture, a hand smoothing hair from a damp brow. You wipe their nose, you guide them to the pot. You rock them on your lap. You listen to their stammered words, though half of them are nonsense. Bad dreams, cold feet, aching bellies, shadows in corners. It doesn't matter what woke them. You are here. That is all they need. That is all you can give. Sometimes it's not the children. Sometimes it's your husband. A grunt, a groan, a restless arm knocking into your ribs. You shift to give him space to keep peace. You've learned that if he wakes in a bad dream or in a bad mood, it's best if he doesn't see you first. You lie still, barely breathing, waiting for his breath to settle again. You've been kicked before, shoved aside in sleep. It's not personal. Nothing is. You don't resent it. You just avoid it. And when the house quiets again, when the dark holds its breath, you lie back down, but you do not fall. You hover, always one sound away from motion, always listening, always ready. Rest is not a place you visit. It is something you mimic. Because the world might stop for others in sleep, but for mothers, it never does. And when morning comes, no one remembers. No one says, "You were up 3 times," or "You calmed her when she screamed." No one asks why your eyes are already red, why your back moves stiffly, why your hands shake when they pour the first ladle of porridge. They assume you slept because they did. They assume you rested because your body was still. But stillness and rest are not the same. You live in a body that stays ready, ready to rise, ready to comfort, ready to endure. And the cost of that readiness is never paid back. It simply becomes part of you. You carry it like everything else, quietly, constantly, because this is what mothers do. Not because they are thanked, not because they are strong, but because a cry in the night is never just sound. It is a summons. And you have always answered, even in sleep. Especially in sleep. The earth near the house is softest in the corner by the fence, where the sun touches it just enough to keep it loose. You've dug there before, with a shovel when you had one, with your hands when you didn't. The soil is dark, full of old roots and stones and memories. It doesn't protest. It doesn't judge. It gives a little with each scoop, patient, silent. You've buried animals there first. Chickens that stopped laying. The cat that died in spring with its eyes still open. A dog once, stiff and curled from the cold. You wrapped them in cloth or didn't. You whispered something or didn't. But you always dug, because there was no one else. And because the earth always accepts what you cannot carry inside. It's not a sacred act, not a ritual, just something you do. Because death is part of the day. and the yard is closer than the church. Then came the first child, a girl born too soon or too quiet, or both. You don't remember every detail, just the weight of her, lighter than you imagined, and the way the midwife didn't speak afterward. You held her, for a time, and then you wrapped her in the same cloth you had planned to use for swaddling. It smelled of ash and milk and your skin. No one told you what to do next. They just left the room, and you went outside. The wind was still, the sky low. You walked to the corner and began to dig, your knees damp, your breath uneven. You didn't cry, not because you weren't grieving, but because grief was too large to fit in tears. You placed her gently, as if she might still wake. You covered her slowly, pressing the soil down with flat palms. Then you stood. You did not mark the spot. You didn't need to. Your body remembers. After that, it became part of the rhythm. A hen in winter, a piglet in spring, a sun after fever, a hope after hunger. Sometimes it's not even something with a body. Sometimes it's a ribbon you wore before marriage, a broken comb, a lock of hair. Once a piece of paper with words you could not read but kept anyway. Things that no longer belong, that carry too much weight, that ache just to look at. The yard receives them all. The yard becomes your confidant, your witness, your graveyard of small, quiet things. No one else asks what you're doing when you kneel there. They assume you're tending something, weeds, onions, a herb you never name. And maybe you are. But mostly, you're remembering. You're returning. You're giving something back to the only part of this place that listens. And still, you rise. You wipe your hands. You walk back into the house and stir the pot, sweep the floor, braid the child's hair. You do not speak of what the yard holds. No one does. The children play near it without knowing. The chickens scratch close by. Life continues inches from what you've lost. And that's how it always is. There is no wall between grief and duty, no pause, just a shift in weight, a breath drawn slower, a glance at the dirt that holds more of you than your own bed. You bury small things in the yard, not to forget them, but to survive them. Because the house cannot carry all your sorrows. Because your body must stay upright. Because someone has to cook and wash and wake. The earth understands. The earth forgives. The earth never asks for explanations. It just opens. It just holds. You walk through the market with a basket on your hip, the strap cutting into your shoulder through layers of cloth. The road is crowded, muddy, loud. Men shout over prices, children tug sleeves. Someone leads a goat through the mass, and it bleats sharply. The air smells of fish, manure, old bread, and bodies. You step carefully to avoid the slickest parts of the path, your boots worn thin, your heel aching. You nod when someone bumps into you, apologize when someone else brushes past. You know your place, on the edge of things, in the seams between conversations. The crowd moves like a river, and you move with it, but no one speaks to you. Not really. A vendor barks his price in your direction, but his eyes skim past you. You hand him coins, he gives you cheese, neither of you says more. The basket grows heavier, and still no one says your name. You pass women you've known your whole life. Girls who grew up beside you, who bled the same summer, who once whispered secrets under quilts. Now they barely lift their eyes. Not out of malice, just distance. They're busy. Their own children tug at them. Their husbands walk ahead, barking orders or pointing at stalls. You nod. You smile. They don't always smile back. Everyone here knows you. Your name, your family, your house, your children. But knowing is not the same as seeing. You are known like a rock is known, or a tree, always there, always part of the background. No one asks how you are. No one asks what you think. When people talk, it is around you, not to you. You are included by proximity, not by presence. You stand near a group and listen to their stories, their jokes, their gossip, and you laugh when appropriate. But you don't speak. You're not invited to. In the church, it's the same. You sit in the back, veil pulled low, hands folded neatly. The priest's voice rises and falls, his words weighty and slow. You listen not to understand, but to endure. Around you, other women kneel, stand, bow, like a single body moving together. And yet, you feel separate, like something watching from behind glass. No one notices your silence. No one sees the way your fingers tremble on the bench. You are there, but not truly. The sermon is for the men, even when it speaks of wives, especially then. You keep your head low. You mouth the prayers. And when the service ends, you file out with the rest, nodding politely, holding the hand of a child who pulls at your sleeve. Someone compliments the baby. You thank them. They walk on. No one lingers. Even at home, even at a full table, the same emptiness presses in. You pour the broth, pass the bread, wipe a mouth, answer a question. You move between them like wind, felt but not seen. When they laugh, you smile. When they argue, you step back. You are the silence that holds the family together. You are the work that no one sees until it's undone. There are voices everywhere, but none of them are yours. And after a while, you stop trying. You let the quiet grow inside you. You learn to fill it with other things: the rhythm of chopping, the hiss of boiling water, the creak of wood beneath your feet. The world is full of sound, but you are alone in it. Alone at the market, alone at the church, alone at your own table. Not because no one is near, but because no one truly looks. No one truly hears. You're not a ghost, but sometimes you feel like one. When he leaves, the house becomes quieter, but the quiet is not peace. It is thin and brittle, like ice that covers shallow water. You hear everything more sharply: the creak of beams at night, the wind pushing through the thatch, the cough of a child in the dark. You don't have to brace for his footsteps or gauge the weight of his silence, but that doesn't make you feel safer. It just makes the absence louder. He's gone to market, or to help a cousin, or to speak with someone in another village. Maybe for a day, maybe for 3, maybe longer. He doesn't always say, and when he does, you nod. You do not ask questions, because questions are what wives ask when they have choices. You are not that wife, so he leaves, and you stay. The house stays, the work stays, and all of it feels heavier without him. Not because you miss him, but because the world does not treat a woman alone the same way it treats a woman with a man nearby. You notice it first in the way others look at you, at the well, at the path to the pasture, in the way the neighbor lingers too long when asking if you need help carrying wood. No one is cruel exactly. No one touches you. but you feel it. That thin space between curiosity and opportunity. The way your presence is now an open door instead of a wall. You walk with your eyes low. You speak only when necessary. You stay close to home when the sun begins to fall. At night, you slide the bolt into place twice, even though the latch barely holds. The house groans differently when no man is inside it. You hear it sigh. You hear it shift. You lie awake and listen to your own breath, wondering how loud it would sound to someone just outside. The children sleep beside you, warm and unaware. But your body does not rest. It curls inward, alert, listening for steps that do not come. The animals grow anxious too, as if they feel the change in the house. The dog barks more often, or not at all. The hens are quieter, the goat harder to milk. The rhythm of the day frays at the edges. You do everything, as you always do, but it feels more exposed. You carry the buckets farther, chop the wood yourself, settle disputes between children without his voice behind yours. And when someone knocks, you open the door with a smile that hides your caution. You are polite, always. You are not rude, because rudeness in a woman alone is remembered, and remembered things are dangerous. You give bread to the boy who comes asking. You say no, gently, to the man who lingers. You offer nothing but what's expected. Still, the space feels tighter, the days longer, the sky lower, not because you are afraid of the dark, but because you know how quickly a shadow can become a hand. And when he returns, you do not run to meet him. You do not weep with relief. You watch him approach from the doorway, measuring the set of his shoulders, the speed of his gait, the lines around his mouth. He might bring meat. He might bring coin. He might bring nothing but his presence. And even that is something. You step aside to let him in. You pour water. You ask if the road was clear. He nods. You nod. The house exhales. The wind softens. The dog relaxes. And you begin to breathe again. Not because you are loved, not because you are safe, but because the world sees a man again, and that changes everything. His return does not fix you, does not free you, but it covers you like a thin layer of protection. And in a life where women go unseen or too easily seen, even that is something. Even that is enough. The sound of laughter drifts from the yard, rising and falling like wind over water. It comes in bursts, sharp, sudden, full-bodied. The kind of laughter that makes people slap their knees, lean on walls, wipe tears from their eyes. It comes from the men mostly, sitting in a loose circle, drinking something warm and bitter, speaking of things that matter only to them. One gestures with a stick, another mimics someone's voice, the others howl. They're not laughing at you, but not with you either. You're passing behind them, arms full of laundry, steps quiet so the baby inside doesn't stir. You pause for a moment, just a moment, to listen. They don't see you. Or if they do, they don't speak, not now, not while they're laughing. Inside, the children scream in that high, unbroken way that only children can. Not out of pain, just out of energy, out of joy. They run circles around the bench, the cradle, the dog. They trip and squeal. The smallest tumbles, and the others laugh again. It's all too loud, but you don't stop it. Laughter is good, even when it doesn't touch you. even when it moves through the house like light through a window, warming everything except the floor you stand on. You smile when you catch their joy. You nod when your husband waves you over. You smile again when the baby burbles or a child wraps arms around your waist. You are surrounded by sound, but none of it belongs to you. You do not remember the last time you laughed like that. The last time something caught you by surprise, pulled a sound from your chest so freely that you forgot yourself. Maybe it was before the third child, or the second death, or the first winter that bit too hard. You smile now. You even chuckle sometimes, mostly out of politeness, or to ease tension, or to reassure a child that the bump wasn't serious. But laughter, real laughter, feels distant. Like a song you used to know, like the name of someone who moved away. It's not that you're unhappy exactly. There are good days. There are quiet joys. But your body stays tight. Your chest holds too many sighs. You live in watchfulness, not delight. And laughter doesn't visit women like that often. Later, you sit by the fire, darning a sock that will never be fully whole again. The room is quieter. The men are gone. The children sleep. The laughter has dissolved into memory. You think of something that might have been funny once. The way the goat ate the soap last spring. The face your husband made when he stepped in the washtub. You smile, but it fades quickly. There's no one to share it with now. And even if there were, the moment has passed. You were part of the day, but not of the laughter. You heard it. You welcomed it. But you did not enter it. And that is how it always is. You are the hearth, the wall, the floor. You hold the joy of others, quietly, steadily, without asking for your own. Because laughter, like rest, is a luxury. And luxury is for someone else. You don't remember how old you are. Not exactly. You could guess, of course. Count the winters since your first blood, or the number of harvests since your wedding. But even then, you wouldn't be sure. Years blend together, smoothed by repetition. One day is laundry, the next is baking, the third is mending. Then it begins again. The sun rises and sets and rises again, and your hands stay busy. No one asks your age anymore. Children ask their own. Men count theirs in seasons of strength or in taxes paid. But for you, the days are not marked by candles on a cake or scratches on a wall. They are marked by stains on your apron, calluses on your palms, and the stretch of your back when you stand too fast. You remember moments, a birth, a fire, a death, but not their order, not their spacing. You are ageless, not because you are young, but because time has folded itself around you, hiding the edges. When you were a girl, age was something to watch, something to fear even. Too young, and you were invisible. Old enough, and suddenly men looked differently. Their eyes lingered. Their tone changed. You were still you. Thin wrists, missing tooth, quiet voice. But the world started calling you woman. You didn't feel like one. Not then. But that didn't matter. You bled once and the counting began, not your own counting, theirs. Suitors came. Your mother whispered. You stopped playing. You lowered your voice. You stood straighter. That was the last time your age felt like yours. Since then, it has belonged to others. A number to trade you by. A measure of worth. A reason to give or deny. And once the first child came, the number no longer mattered. You were a mother now. And mothers are not girls and not old. and not young, just mothers. Now you look in the basin sometimes and wonder. There are lines at your eyes. Your hands are darker than your face, sun-marked, scarred. Your hair, what little shows, is duller than it used to be. You remember laughing more once. Or maybe that's someone else's memory. Maybe it was your sister or your cousin, someone whose life had more pauses. You think you might be 30, or 35, or younger, or older. It doesn't matter. You lift children who call you mother. You serve men who call you wife. You tend to elders who still call you girl, though your spine aches and your fingers crack in winter. You are the same shape to everyone, useful, necessary, present. But your own sense of time drifts. It is not lost, just quiet. Like a book without page numbers, like a candle without marks to show how long it's burned. And so you go on. You live by tasks, not anniversaries. You measure time in soup pots and birth pains and the stitching of seams. You remember the year the cow died, not what year it was. You know your youngest is teething. You know your oldest speaks like her father. These are your milestones. These are your seasons. And one day perhaps someone will ask, maybe a grandchild, maybe a priest, and you will smile gently and say you're not sure, because you truly aren't, because the number is small compared to the weight of your days, because age is a luxury, to mark, to hold, to declare. And you have had no such luxury. Only life, only labor, only the long, slow forgetting of yourself in service to everyone else. The room is quiet, though not in the way that invites peace. It's a silence thick with absence, a stillness that presses against the walls, the rafters, the backs of your knees. Someone has died. Not suddenly, not unexpectedly, but completely. And now it's time. You are the one who will clean the body. You have done it before. You will do it again. No one asks if you are ready, because this isn't about readiness. It is about duty, about care, about what is left when everything else is gone. You roll your sleeves, not because it is formal, but because you must. The basin is ready, the cloth is worn, the water still warm. You kneel beside the shape that used to be someone and begin. You start with the hands, always the hands, because they are familiar, even now, because they remind you that this body once worked, once fed, once held. The fingers are stiff, but not yet locked. You lift one gently, press the damp cloth between the knuckles. You don't rush. There's no reason to. The body will not complain. The body will not resist. It is just there, heavy, cooling, still. You speak softly, perhaps. Or maybe you don't speak at all. There are women who murmur prayers as they work. You prefer silence, not out of coldness, but out of respect. Words feel too sharp here, so you let the cloth speak for you. Let the water offer its quiet comfort. You clean the face last, not because it is least important, but because it is the hardest. Faces hold stories. Faces hold memory. This one is pale now, the lips parted just slightly, the eyes closed if someone has already done it. If not, you will do it. Gently, always gently. You wipe the brow, the cheeks, the curve of the chin. You smooth the hair if there is hair. You straighten the collar if there is one. And then you stop. You sit back on your heels and breathe in the scent of soap, of wood, of something deeper. Death does not smell like rot at first. It smells like dust, like damp fabric, like the air being different. You have smelled it before. You know it well. It does not frighten you. Not anymore. When it is done, you cover the body with a cloth. You do not cry. Not here. Not now. Grief is a private thing, and this is not the time for it. This is the time for hands, for care, for doing what must be done because no one else will. Later, perhaps, when you're alone, the ache will rise, but not now. Now you rise slowly, knees stiff, back aching. You pour out the water, you rinse the cloths, you wipe the floor. No one thanks you, no one mentions it. The dead do not praise, the living forget. But you remember, each one, each body, each silence. You remember their weight, their shape, the way their fingers curled or didn't. And in that remembering, you carry them, quietly, steadily. The way women carry the world, not for glory, not for reward, but because someone has to, and because you always have. The screaming always ends. It tears through the walls, through the night, through your bones, and then suddenly, it doesn't. There's no warning, just sound one moment, and the absence of it the next. Your ears still ring from the echoes. Your hands still tremble from holding, from bracing, from not knowing what to do, and now, silence. Not relief, not peace, just silence. The kind that feels too loud, the kind that presses against your ribs and makes you want to run, though there's nowhere to run to. You sit still, or maybe you stand, uncertain. The room is still full of sweat, of blood, of breath, but the air feels hollow, as if something has slipped out through the cracks and left the rest behind. You've lived through this before. A child burning up with fever, wailing for hours until exhaustion took them. A birth that lasted through the night. Each contraction a wave of agony, until the final cry, or the lack of it, fell like a stone. A man struck in anger or in drink, shouting curses until he could shout no more. And always afterward, the silence. Not calm, not emptiness. Something more brittle than that. You move slowly through it. You clean. You whisper. You check for breath. The quiet makes you cautious, makes you flinch at every creak, every distant bark, every clink of pottery on stone. You are not comforted. You are only waiting, waiting for the next sound, or for none at all. Others don't speak of it, not this part. They remember the screaming. They talk about the pain, the chaos, the moment. But not what follows, not the stillness, not the strange weight of a world that has suddenly stopped vibrating. You feel it in your chest, in your jaw, in the way your body won't fully relax even after the danger is gone. It's not just silence, it's memory of what happened, of what might have, of what still could. Because silence can end just as suddenly as it began. A cough, a gasp, a cry that didn't come soon enough. You live inside that gap, that breath between what was and what is now. And there's no comfort in it, just time and tension, and the knowing that something has changed, even if no one says so. Later, the sounds return, the creak of floorboards, the murmurs of children, a pot boiling, a man calling your name without urgency. Life resumes. It always does. But part of you remains in that moment. frozen, wary. The silence taught you something. Not everything screams before it breaks. Not every danger is loud. And not every quiet is safe. So you keep listening. You keep moving. You cradle the ones who need cradling. You speak gently. You clean the blood. You smooth the sheets. And all the while you remember the hush that came after. The moment the world held its breath. And how, somehow, so did you. Your back began to ache before you knew it was unusual. At first, it was a dull pull between the shoulders after lifting buckets from the well or hauling firewood from the stack. Then it spread, lower, deeper, as the weight you carried each day became not just logs or baskets, but children, expectations, whole mornings of kneading dough and afternoons bent over hems. No one told you that strength could break you like this, that the body can bend and not unbend, that youth can be buried slowly beneath repetition, not time. You were not old. You were not even fully grown when your spine began to shift under the burden of doing everything, always, for everyone. There were no doctors to ask, no names for the pain, just the way your body responded when you rose too quickly, or sat too long, or twisted wrong in the middle of making the bed. You learned to hide it, to keep working. You told yourself it was normal, that all women your age moved like this, with effort, with small pauses, with a hand pressed to the base of the spine before standing up. You stopped straightening fully after a while. It wasn't a decision. It was a habit that turned permanent. The curve became you. It grew more certain with each year, like a path you walked so often that the grass no longer grew beneath your steps. Others noticed, of course, though they didn't say it outright. They offered seats you declined. They told you to rest, but only after the meal was done. Children began to climb you differently, not with the reckless joy of a toddler on a mother's back, but gently, as if they understood. You adjusted your movements to the ache. You lifted with your legs when you remembered. You leaned your weight on walls, on tables, on your own thighs when no one was looking. The world didn't pause for your pain. It rarely even acknowledged it. And you never asked it to. Pain that stayed became part of you, not a wound, not even a warning, but a shape. Now, when you pass your reflection in still water, you see it clearly. The tilt forward, the slight stoop. Your shoulders roll inward without asking. Your arms hang lower than they used to. You are not yet old, but you move like someone who is. Not because of age, but because of wear, of service, of years spent carrying what could not be shared. Your back, like your life, has curved around others, around their needs, their comfort, their survival. And there is something beautiful in that. Something tragic, too. You do not walk tall, but you still walk. And that, in itself, is its own kind of strength. The quiet kind that no one applauds, but everyone relies on. She's at the table again before the sun finishes rising. Her hands deep in the dough, her sleeves pushed up, her back hunched not from effort, but from the shape her life has settled into. Your mother does not stop, not because she's needed, though she is, but because stopping was never something she learned. Her fingers move with certainty, pressing, folding, rolling the mass into the same shape she's made 1,000 times. You watch her quietly. She doesn't look up. She doesn't speak. There's nothing to say. This is what mornings are, and always have been. Even now, even with her hair graying and her knees stiff, she keeps working. You offered to help, of course. Years ago, she refused then, and now she doesn't answer. Not out of pride, but because this is how she holds herself together. In work, in repetition, in the motion of hands that never stopped moving, even when her body asked her to. You remember being a child, hiding behind her skirts, hearing the creak of her joints as she knelt to scrub the floor or reached into the fire. Back then, you thought she was strong. Now you understand. Strength wasn't a choice, it was the only way forward. And now you see her strength for what it really is, a quiet refusal to fall apart. There is no retirement in your world, no soft years of leisure, no warm bench by the fire unless the hands have earned it that very day. Even now, when she forgets things, when her eyes squint too long at the thread, your mother finds some task to keep the silence away. She still mends clothes no one wears. She still stirs pots half empty. She still wipes surfaces already clean. Her labor isn't efficient anymore. But it isn't about efficiency. It's about being useful, about proving to herself, to you, to the ghosts of all the women before her, that a woman's worth doesn't fade, only changes shape. She doesn't complain. She doesn't rest. And maybe she doesn't know how. You wonder if this is what waits for you. If your own children will one day watch you fold dough with the same slow hands, the same bent spine, the same resigned silence. You wonder if they'll understand, or if they'll only feel pity. You don't ask your mother if she's tired. The answer is obvious, but also irrelevant. She works not because she can, but because she must. Because in this life, movement is survival, stillness is surrender, and she is not ready to surrender yet. Not even now. Not even with her hands aching and her breath shallow. She is still working, and so you will too, because you come from her, because you carry her shape, and because even if you never say it, you are proud. It comes in the dark, when the fire has gone low, and the wind presses against the shutters like a breath held too long. You're not asleep. Not really. Just folded in quiet, letting your body forget the weight of the day. And then it happens. A voice. Small, sharp, trembling. Mama. Not a question. Not a call for water or comfort. It's fear. Raw and sudden, the kind that grabs at the edge of a blanket with both hands and won't let go. You're on your feet before you think. You know the sound. You know it too well. It's the voice that says, something is wrong. Something has shifted, and you are the only one who can fix it. He's not sick, not yet, but the sweat on his neck tells you it's coming. Or maybe it's just a dream that gripped him too tightly, one he doesn't understand. Maybe the shadows moved wrong across the ceiling. Maybe he heard a rat. Maybe it was nothing. But it doesn't matter. His fear is real. And your name, your real name, not woman or wife or you there, was the only word he could think to say. Not because you have answers, not because you are strong, but because he believes that if you are here, nothing worse will happen. And so you come. You always come, even when you're not sure you can help, even when the fear lives inside you too. There is a kind of strength in that, being the one someone calls in the middle of the night, when the world feels uncertain. But there's also a weight, because you don't get to fall apart. You don't get to hide. You have to be solid, even when you're shaking. You sit by his side. You touch his forehead. You hum something old and soft. The kind of sound that doesn't need words, and you stay until his breathing slows, until his grip on your wrist loosens, until the dark feels less sharp. You stay because you were called, because your name was the one he trusted, and because somewhere, long ago, you wished someone would do the same for you. When you finally lie back down, the fear lingers, not his, but yours. The what-ifs, the waiting, the knowing that this will happen again, maybe tomorrow, maybe a year from now, and that each time you'll answer. You'll walk barefoot across the cold floor. You'll kneel by the bed. You'll offer warmth you barely have. Not because you have to, not even because it's your role, but because your name, Maria, Lena, Anna, whatever it was before life stripped it down, still means something, even if only in whispers, even if only in fear. And maybe that's enough. To be the one someone calls when they're afraid. To be the voice in the dark that answers. You don't dream of a better house, or a warm bed with soft sheets, or a man who speaks gently and asks how you feel. You don't dream of flowers or music, or kisses stolen in candlelight. You don't even dream of being loved. What you dream of, when sleep comes quietly and doesn't bring a child's fever or a husband's weight, is to be alone. Not forever. Not even for long. Just long enough to hear nothing. No footsteps. No calling voices. No door creaking. No pot boiling over. Just a space where no one needs you for a moment. A breath that belongs to you and you alone. You think of it sometimes while washing clothes, or when you're crouched by the fire, stirring with one hand and rocking a child with the other. A dream so simple, it feels like sin. A room with a door that closes. A field with no paths. A hillside with nothing but wind and sky. You wouldn't do anything extravagant. You'd sit. You'd breathe. You'd think, maybe, of who you were before all of this. Before the chores and the noise and the endless giving. You'd remember your own voice not as a tool to soothe or to answer, but as a sound for yourself. You'd remember your hands not as instruments of work, but as something tender, still capable of holding beauty. And maybe you'd cry, not from sadness, but from the quiet itself. Because you've forgotten how silence feels when it isn't filled with worry. Forgotten what your body sounds like when it's not lifting or bending or bracing. You wouldn't stay in this dream place. You're not foolish. You know that the real world would pull you back, through the cry of a child, or the bang of a door, or the ache in your spine. But in that imagined stillness, you could pretend, just for a while, that you were allowed to want nothing, that your existence was enough without proving it, without doing, without being needed. And when you return, because you always do, you won't speak of this dream. No one would understand. Or worse, they'd understand too well. You'll wake before the fire, stretch your back, dip your hands into the same cold water. You'll move through the day as you always have. But somewhere, tucked away behind your eyes, the dream will remain. A field, a sky, a moment without requests, and that will be enough. Not to change anything, but to remind you that you are still there, beneath it all. And that one day, maybe, the silence will not be borrowed, but yours. You've thought about leaving, Not running away, not escaping in some grand gesture, just stepping out, stepping away. Letting the walls fall behind you, letting the weight of everything stay exactly where it is while you vanish quietly into the space beyond the fields. Maybe you'd find a river and sit there with your feet in the water. Maybe you'd walk until the road no longer recognized your name. You wouldn't ask for a new life. You know better than that. You'd ask for nothing, just distance, just pause, just the chance to exist without the pull of others. But you don't leave. You stay. Not out of duty, not even out of love, though there is love, but because someone must. There is grain to soak, ashes to sweep, children to hush, a man to feed, a roof that doesn't quite hold. You are the one who knows where the thread is kept, where the water jug leaks, which baby coughs in the night, and which one cries for nothing. Your body remembers every task before your mind can name it. And so you stay. Because absence is not a luxury afforded to women like you. Your presence isn't ceremonial or noble. It is structural. Things fall when you don't hold them. Things stop when you don't turn them. You are the axis around which the small world of your home spins, and no one says thank you. They don't need to. You don't expect it. You just keep spinning. Some days, you wonder who you'd be if none of this had happened. If marriage had waited. If children had come later. If your name was still yours and not just what's called when something's wrong. You don't dwell on it. There's no time for that. But the thought lives somewhere between waking and sleep, between chores and the sound of evening bells. Not longing, just a quiet noticing. You have stayed. Through birth and death, through cold and lean harvests, through bruises that never had names and joys that never had witnesses. You stayed when it was hard. You stayed when it was senseless. You stayed when no one else saw the cost. You always did. And you still do. Not because you're strong, though you are. Not because you were told to, though you were. But because it's what's left. Because if you leave, the bread will not rise. The child will not be washed. The silence will deepen, and no one will notice until it's too late. So you remain. You straighten your back, even when it aches. You answer, even when no one asks kindly. You endure, not as a badge of honor, but as a simple, living fact. You are here. You are needed. You stay. And so, you've seen what it meant to live as her, not in stories or glory, but in the quiet weight of every day. No miracles, no rescue, just presence, just survival. And if you're still here, listening, then maybe in some quiet way, you stayed too.